Good afternoon. Welcome to Napanee Public Library. My name is Maggie and this is Book Bites. Today we're going to be doing a reader's advisory on books that have a setting outside of the United States. So I hope you enjoy and find some titles that really pique your interest. Okay, so on today's episode, it is episode 21 of year 2, so we're getting close to the end of our year, and today we're going to be featuring books that have a setting taken out, like set outside of the United States. So some of the books that we have here in our collection, obviously they give you that opportunity to really explore your world without leaving your comfortable reading chair, right? So some of the books that we have here that I'm going to be highlighting are obviously not exclusive just to our collection, but we'll have lots of other opportunities to share books with you. As I'm holding up different titles, if you are interested in any of them, they really sound like something you want to read, and you have your Napanee Public Library card, we would love to put them on hold for you. So these are going to be immediately available following Book Bites, and we can give you a call or an email, whatever your preference is, and you can come in and pick these up at your convenience and have some great books to read this month. I'm going to tell you if a book has multiple formats. With your Napanee Public Library card, you have access obviously to your physical book collection, but we also have Libby and Overdrive. We also have a newer program that's going to be called Hoopla, and that also is going to give you some digital content that you can use with your library card. So when I'm sharing books, I will try to let you know if it comes in those alternate formats. If I fail to mention, go ahead and leave a comment. Tell me so I can tell you if those things are available in an electronic form. So we're going to be traveling all over the world. So our first book is set in Australia. So how many of you guys like to read books that take you into faraway places? Jane Harper does that for me. So I've read all of her books that she's had so far. I think she's written like 4 or 5, and each time I am totally immersed in her writing style. So this is going to be a standalone book. It is different than some of her series, but in this book you really get the setting that's going to help you build the story. And this is a multi-generational story. The Lost Man is written from the standpoint of one of 3 brothers, where 2 of the 3, they find the third one passed away on their family station. A family station in Australia could be anywhere from like 2,000 square miles. So like your private property is this huge area. And they find their brother, and they don't know if he's been murdered, they don't know if he committed suicide. And so this is going to be written like a mystery where you're jumping back and forth, learning all the details surrounding the story, and it totally immersifies you in what it's like to live in Australia and to have those 113-degree temperature days that are totally normal for these families. Because everything is in metrics, I did find myself Googling a lot of these moments when you're trying to really have that scene built up. So it was fun for me. I got to learn a lot about Australia and about the outback, and it kept me guessing. I truly had no idea who had done it or what had happened to our deceased brother in this book until I got to the very end. So that was a really fun book for me. The Lost Man, we do have it as a physical book. We have it as an ebook and an e-audio book. So if you're interested, you can leave us a comment right here live on Facebook, or if you watch it later, you can always request it, and we'll have that available as well. Okay, hop, skip, and a jump away from Australia. We're going to head to Great Britain. That is a pretty popular location for many books. This one I just read last month, The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Birchall. It is a rom-com that takes a trope that isn't so new anymore, but to hire a bridesmaid sounded like such a strange concept to me. But now I've seen Netflix movies, I've seen Hallmark movies where they take that same concept where you can hire a bridesmaid to do kind of the legwork of being in a wedding. And that's what our main character does in this. She is a high-profile secret bridesmaid, and she is hired to kind of take care of a bridezilla, if you will, a very uppy class lady who has pushed away all of her friends, and her mom is just absolutely concerned that she's not going to have anybody to stand by her side. And so in comes our main character here. You learn the bigger picture of these characters that you really want to hate, and you figure out why they are the way that they are. And so you get to love the characters that you hated when you start, and you get kind of a backdrop, and it is a romance, so you get a backdrop of the landscape of Great Britain when they're traveling and doing taste testings and things like that. It is a fun setting build. So The Secret Bridesmaid is a book that we have as a physical book here in my hand, and we also have it as an audio book in Libby and Overdrive. Last week I got the opportunity to read this one. I read it in a day. It was so fun. So this is Shipped by Angie Hockman. It's going to take place kind of, it starts in the United States, then it goes to the Galapagos Islands for most of the book, and then it comes back to the United States at the very end. In this book, it kind of gives you that premise of fighting for your job. And so two people are up for the same promotion, and the boss's idea of trying to figure out who can one-up the other sends them both on a business trip. They both write for a cruise line, sends them on a cruise together in the Galapagos Islands, and wants to see who can outpitch the other at an upcoming meeting. What they don't know is that the boss has it in for one of them. So it's a fun story. It is a romance. It's clean, so it's not very super descriptive in any romantic scenes at all. In this one, it was kind of like a mix between The Honeymooners, which would be Christina Lauren, and who would I mix this with? Probably Sally Thorne's book. It's blue. The Hating Game. It felt like a mashup between the two of those. So if you're looking for a fun read, this one made me absolutely laugh out loud because there's this whole setting about marine iguanas and how you can hear them sneezing all over the beach. So I definitely got on YouTube to figure out what that was about. But Shipped is a great story. It's kind of empowering, and you really start to hate the boss in this. So if you're looking for a book to give you something to gripe about, this would be a fun one. We have this book in large print, ebook, and e-audio. Okay, we'll keep going here with this stack. This is the fourth book in the Lisa K. Adams series. This is the Bromance Book Club series. So this is what I say, this is the fourth one, right? And each character so far has had their own story. And when you've read the first three, they definitely build on each other, so I would recommend reading them in order. But when you read the first three, you get to know about this book club of just funny guys who are all trying to either recoup their marriages or to find a new love interest. And one of the sub-characters in those first three books is the Russian, and he finally gets his first own story. So in this one, this follows the Russian and his journey to love, and what we find out, and we don't know in the first three books, is that he is actually married. So in this one, you get that backstory, and it travels back and forth between like a modern day story and then what happened and why he left Russia the way that he did. So it's got that duality in the settings, and so that makes it kind of fun. Unfortunately, this one is going to kind of follow that stigma of Russia being kind of dark and ominous. So if you're looking for a happy-go-lucky one, this is not going to give you that Russian setting of a lighthearted romance. There's reasons they left Russia in this story, but it's a fun book. So we have Isn't It Bromantic? Again, fourth book in the series. We do have all of them as a physical book, and then some of them we have in different formats. This actual one we have also as an e-audiobook on Libby and Overdrive.
The e-audiobook of that one was so good.
Was spot on.
So funny.
Okay, so did it have an accent? Do you remember?
Yes.
It did.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously when you're reading books that have characters that go to a different country, they're gonna sound American. So that's not super like worthy of mentioning when you do an e-audiobook, but if you have a book that has a character that's from the country that you're reading and you get those how do you say that? Like their dialect, it comes through the narrator. You really, I love it. Absolutely love it. Let's see, this one is from Finland. I honestly would not have picked it up had it not been a Reese's Book Club pick. This is Flynn Barry's Northern Spy. It was a thriller. That's not really something I tend to read a lot of, but this one kept me guessing. So I read it and I really was like, oh man, I kind of want to visit Finland someday. No, this story kind of goes back and forth. You get that MI5 feel. You get the the IRA, and everybody's after you, and so that's what builds up the suspense in this book. So it was a good read for me, but very different than anything that I have ever read before. Now this one does kind of have multiple points of view. It's got two sisters, and you honestly, you don't know who to believe. Is the person that's telling the story somebody that you should put your faith and your trust in? Is she telling you what she thinks you want to hear? So you have to kind of use your intuition as a reader to find out if it is a book and a story that is believable or if it's not. So this one, again, it takes place in Ireland. It is one that we have as a book. We also have it as a large print book and an e-book. So we have that in multiple formats. Before we keep going with the rest of this pile, is there any books that you guys have read recently, those of you who are watching us live, that have read books that have taken place outside of the country? Anything that you would like to add to the discussion here? You can leave comments. Let us know if there are some that you've really enjoyed, and we can actually add those to our list, and other people who are watching might find a book that they like to read. One of the first books that I ever read that put such a big impression on me was The House Without Windows, and that was a book that took place in Afghanistan. And since then I've read lots of books that take place in Afghanistan, and it's such a beautiful country. I'd love to travel and visit there someday. Unfortunately, it kind of, just like Russia and this other book here, has a stigma of being such a place of void where you just wouldn't want to go and visit. But these stories, these ones really make you want to go and experience these countries firsthand. Nadia Hashimi has written, I think this is my third book that I read by her, and this was a fantastic book for me to delve into what it's like to be a forced immigrant. So in Sparks Like Stars, you get like the buildup of the story. The first part takes place in the 70s. Our main character, she is a child who has a close relationship with the presidential family of the 1970s there in Afghanistan. He is rather provocative as a president, and a coup takes place. And on the night of the coup, her and her family is actually there in the palace, and everybody's killed. She's the only survivor, and she is smuggled out of the palace. Nobody believes that she actually survived. They think she died as well. She's smuggled out of the palace by a bodyguard, and then the story jumps forward multiple decades, and you find her as a grown woman living in New York City. She is a renowned surgeon, and she's kind of just put her step forward. What happened to her as a child is definitely a part of her past, but she doesn't address it in her day-to-day life. And it takes somebody from her past that she just runs into on the street to really make her world just fall. And so then you get that storyline of trying to delve into her past, and she's reconciling with what happened to her and her family. And then it also becomes kind of like a hunt to find out more. So this was a wonderful story that built up Afghanistan as a place that you'd really want to visit. So Sparks Like Stars, again, is a single story. It is not part of a series at all. But it takes place again in New York City for portions of it, and then it goes back into Afghanistan as well. At this current moment, we only have this one available as a physical book, but it is one I would highly recommend. Do we have any comments so far? Any books that people have read outside of the country? No? Well, maybe I'll get you some lists here, and you guys will like some of these and want to read them. This is an older one here in our inspirational fiction section. Robin Jones Gunn has written oodles and oodles and oodles of books. Sister Chicks is just one of the series. This is the first one in the Sister Chicks series. This one's On the Loose, and it follows two women who are very, very different. Besides both being Christians and their new friendship, they could not be more dissimilar. In this story, one of our main characters, she is on a mission. She's going to go to Finland, and she's going to find her last living relatives, and so she invites her friend along on the journey, and it is absolutely hysterical, some of the moments that they get themselves into, and it's a laugh out loud book. It is a little bit older. There's multiple books in this series that we have different formats available in that series. The one that I'm holding up right now, Sister Chicks on the Loose, is available only as a physical book though, so if you enjoy these, we can get our hands on additional copies and things like that as well. Clap When You Land is one that was super fun for me to read. Elizabeth Acevedo is a teen fiction writer, but the characters that she writes are memorable. Elizabeth is one of those authors who writes in prose, which means her books they're large in print, but when you're reading them, they're all written in small, like verses and almost like poetry. So they're quick reads, and this is a story that takes place when there is a plane crash, and one of these girls lives in the Dominican Republic and one of them lives in the United States, and they find out that they share a father, but they don't realize that until after he passes away that he has been living a double life, and he has two families, two daughters, who are raised drastically different just because of the location that they're being brought up in. So this is the story of immediate loss and then of finding each other. You get a sense of what it's like to live in the Dominican Islands the Dominican Republic from one of the points of view, and the other sister lives in a very affluent community. She gets to go to private school. So they're very, very different, but the story behind Clap When You Land is one that I would highly recommend. This one we have is a physical book, an ebook, and an e-audio book on Libby and Overdrive. The last one I wanted to share with you today is another recent read. Island Queen by Vanessa Riley follows the story of Dorothy, what is her last name? I can't remember. I can't remember her last name, but she's called Dolly in the story, but she is born into slavery down in the Caribbean islands, and through her wit and her love for numbers, she is able to educate herself, and she ends up being able to purchase her freedom and her sister Kitty's freedom from their owner, and she continues to educate herself, and she places herself in places and with people who can make a difference. She ends up falling in love multiple times through the course of this book. So she's a child when it first starts, and by the end of the book she is a little old lady, but she's a super wealthy landowner. She's a hotelier, and she has put her mark on the world through the ways that she has stepped up above the challenges that she has had to face. So this is written as a fiction book, but it totally takes somebody who really truly existed, and it gives her a storyline that helps maybe somebody who wouldn't necessarily read a nonfiction book a way to gain that historical perspective through her story. So Island Queen is a newer book, but we do have it available also as an e-audio book. It's massive. So if you're gonna listen to this one, just know it's gonna take you a long time. So Island Queen it's no longer new, it's not on our new bookshelf anymore, but it is newer to the collection. So we're gonna probably archive this video of Book Bites, and if you watch it in hindsight, you can definitely let us know if there's any of these books that you want to check out. We'll leave a list in the comments too that you can reference, and then if there's any of those that you want to swing by and pick up from the collection, you're welcome to do that as well. We have one more episode left this month. Next Thursday we're going to follow some of my favorite books from 2021. So I have not reached my goals yet. I'm still about 10 books short of where I want to be for the year, so I'm hoping I can get a couple more books in this month so I can hit my goals, and then I can share some of those favorite books with you. And then when we come back for season 3 in January, I'm going to also share some of my favorite books from our most recent reading challenge here in the Napanee Public Library. So again, let us know if any of these books pique your interest. We would be happy to place them on hold for you, or you can swing by and pick them up from the collection. If you need help accessing our digital content, please let us know. We'd be happy to do that for you as well. So until next time, we will see you at the library.